I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and I did my undergraduate degree at UTSA, at the University of Texas at San Antonio, and I was an anthropology major and a women and gender studies minor. And then from there, I went to the University of Chicago for my master's and PhD, which I did in sociocultural anthropology. So in terms of research, I've spent the majority of the time focusing on revising my dissertation into a book manuscript. And so the book manuscript is called Selling Sex and Finding Jesus, Love and Obligation on the Mexican Border. And it's based upon a year of research I did, funded by Fulbright Hayes, in the Mexican border city of Reynosa, Tamaulipas, about sex workers and missionaries as migrants to a Mexican border prostitution zone, and the way that they create value through their actions. So I have spent the bulk of the time focusing on this book manuscript, but I've also worked on a couple of journal articles, one which is about to come out in February, and I presented at many academic conferences. And in addition to that, this kind of research, I also was teaching one class per semester, and I worked on programming. I organized a symposium about masculinity and violence on the U.S.-Mexico borderlands. I brought in some peer performance groups. I was also the mentor for the WGSS student group, and I was a faculty in residence for Cooper Village too. So when I was an undergraduate, that's when I first took WGSS classes and became a feminist. I decided to study sex work on the U.S.-Mexico border when I was doing my master's thesis. I wrote my master's thesis about the Ciudad Juarez femicides, in which women, poor, brown women, were being found in public spaces, raped, mutilated, murdered in Ciudad Juarez. And local discourses asked what these women were doing out so late at night, and implying that they had double lives as sex workers, and kind of implying that this would explain why they were raped and mutilated and murdered. So this really got me interested in why so often sex workers, as well as many other kind of poor, racially marked women, are seen to be responsible for their murders, and why they're not respected as full human beings. So that's kind of a central guiding question for my research, and I can't quite say that there's one simple answer to it, but I think that through research it kind of opens up new questions, and I've been able to focus on my teaching upon this question too. So this postdoc has been a really excellent experience, not only in terms of my research, also in terms of meeting new colleagues and forging all these connections in Houston, but also it's been really great for my teaching because I've got to teach courses in gender and sexuality studies that I haven't taught before. So for example, I got to develop a queer theory and sexuality course, which I taught in an interdisciplinary way. Once I taught it cross-listed in anthropology, and once I taught it totally interdisciplinary. I also, and I taught that actually 3 times. I also developed an intersectionalities course about sex and money, and kind of intersectional feminist approaches to sex work. And then I developed another one about intersectional approaches to studying race and sexuality. So primarily the students, I think, have been impacted by the kind of the material that I assign in the classroom, and the assignments and the discussions that we've had. Also, students often don't have the opportunity so often to have instructors who are first-generation college students, as many of them are too. Also, I think since I was teaching in gender and sexuality studies, I had a pretty high percentage of my, and also because I was teaching queer theory, a pretty high percentage of my student population identified as queer in some way. And because many of us since I'm also from Texas, and many of my students are as well, I think a lot of us kind of grew up in somewhat more conservative families and grew up being different from our family members. And so being able to teach students who had that kind of that common experience with me was really nice. And I think that for them, having someone teach them that had that kind of common experience was nice too. But really, that's the students at the University of Houston come from all different kinds of backgrounds and different countries, ethnic backgrounds, religions, and life experiences. So one of the greatest things about the University of Houston is really how many perspectives are contained in a classroom. So Houston is really an international city. People live here who have, many of our students have either migrated from elsewhere or their parents have migrated from elsewhere. Our classrooms really, I think, reflect a great deal of economic diversity, religious diversity, ethnic diversity. And we have a mix of non-traditional college students as well as students who have come kind of right after high school. So I think being able to have such a range of perspectives in the classroom is really unique here.